At Christmas dinner, my sister smiled and said, "You're too sensitive," after making another cruel joke at my expense. The room went silent. Not because of what she said, but because of what I did next. I stood up, walked to my purse, and pulled out a folder. Inside were screenshots, text messages, and recordings from the past 5 years documenting every insult, every manipulation, every time she'd gaslit me into thinking I was the problem. I placed it on the table and said 7 words that changed everything: "Let's let everyone decide who's sensitive." Her smile disappeared instantly. "My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 72 years old, and that Christmas dinner exposed 20 years of systematic emotional abuse my family had chosen to ignore. If you've ever been called too sensitive when someone hurt you, or been made to feel crazy for having legitimate reactions to cruelty, hit that like button right now and share your thoughts in the comments. When does protecting yourself become more important than keeping the peace? I read every single comment. Let's hear your stories. December 2018. I was 67 years old, retired after 40 years in corporate finance, and had been dreading this dinner for weeks. Christmas at my sister Linda's house had become an annual exercise in endurance. Linda was 4 years younger than me, and somewhere along the way, our relationship had turned toxic. But because she was the social one, the charming one, the one everyone loved, her cruelty toward me was always dismissed as jokes or sibling rivalry. I arrived at her house in Greenwich at exactly 5 p.m., carrying a homemade apple pie and wine. Linda's colonial-style home was immaculately decorated, every surface covered in expensive holiday decor. She opened the door wearing a designer dress and her signature smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes when she looked at me. "Margaret. You're here. And you wore that sweater again. How economical of you." The sweater was cashmere, barely 2 years old, perfectly nice. But Linda had a gift for making compliments sound like insults. I stepped inside where the family was already gathered. Linda's husband Frank, their 2 adult children Jessica and Michael with their spouses, my brother Tommy with his wife Susan, and our elderly parents, Mom and Dad, both in their late 80s. "Everyone, Margaret's here," Linda announced. Fashionably late as always. I was exactly on time, but I didn't correct her. That was the pattern. She'd say something untrue, I'd object, she'd call me defensive, and everyone would side with her. Better to stay quiet. We gathered in the living room for appetizers. Linda held court as usual, telling stories about her recent vacation to Turks and Caicos, showing photos on her phone. When she got to me sitting on the couch, she paused mid-story. "Margaret, are you eating cheese? I thought you were watching your cholesterol." I set down the cracker. "My cholesterol is fine." "Is it? Because Mom mentioned you were on medication now." All eyes turned to me. I felt my face flush. "That's private medical information." Linda laughed, that tinkling sound that made her seem delightful to everyone else. "Oh, don't be so sensitive. We're family. We're concerned about your health." There it was. The first too sensitive of the evening. It wouldn't be the last. Dinner was called 30 minutes later. We moved to the dining room where Linda had set an elaborate table, place cards positioning everyone strategically. I was seated between my nephew Michael, who'd be on his phone the entire meal, and an empty chair. "We're one short?" Frank asked. "Oh, I invited the Hendersons from next door," Linda said. "They're recently divorced, and Margaret, Bob Henderson, is single now. I thought you two might hit it off. You're both available." The way she said available made it sound like a disease. Bob Henderson arrived 10 minutes later, a pleasant man in his 60s who seemed uncomfortable with the setup. Linda seated him next to me and spent the first course making pointed comments. Bob's an accountant too, Margaret. You both love numbers. How romantic. Bob just bought a boat. Margaret, you like water, don't you? You have that little kayak. Bob's looking to travel more. Margaret, where did you go last? Oh, that's right, you stayed home. Each comment positioned me as boring, unsuccessful, desperate. Bob, to his credit, tried to engage me in normal conversation, but Linda kept interrupting with backhanded observations. Halfway through the main course, she told a story about our childhood. Remember when Margaret wanted to be a ballet dancer? She was so ungraceful. Mom finally had to tell her she didn't have the body for it. She cried for days. So dramatic. I was 8 years old, I said quietly. And I had pneumonia that year. That's why I stopped dancing. Linda waved her hand dismissively. You were always making excuses. Even then. Remember, Tommy? My brother laughed uncomfortably. I don't really remember. Well, I do. Margaret was devastated because she couldn't accept reality. Some people just aren't meant for certain things. She smiled at me sweetly. Like you weren't meant for marriage. Your divorce proved that. The table went quiet. That crossed a line, even for Linda. My divorce 15 years earlier had been painful, my ex-husband's infidelity breaking something fundamental in me. Linda knew that. She'd been there through it. Bob looked extremely uncomfortable. Jessica changed the subject quickly, asking about dessert. But Linda wasn't done. As we cleared plates, she cornered me in the kitchen. Don't be upset about the marriage comment. It was just a joke. It wasn't funny. See, this is your problem. You're too sensitive. You take everything personally. It makes you exhausting to be around. I felt something snap inside. Years of this. Decades of casual cruelty disguised as concern or humor. Always being told my reactions were the problem, never her actions. I'm not too sensitive. You're cruel. Linda's eyes widened in fake shock. Cruel? I'm cruel? I invited you to Christmas dinner. I seated you next to an eligible man. I'm trying to help you, and you call me cruel? You mock me constantly. You've done it my entire life. And when I object, you make me the villain. Because you are the villain. You're negative, you're defensive, you make everything about you. Do you know how hard it is to include you in things? How much effort I put into making you feel welcome. And this is the thanks I get? She stormed back to the dining room. I stood in the kitchen, hands shaking, trying to compose myself. When I returned, Linda was serving dessert, her expression martyred. Everyone, I apologize if the evening has been tense. Some people struggle with family gatherings. She didn't say my name, but everyone knew who she meant. If you're watching this and recognizing this pattern, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who's been gaslit by family, and drop a comment below. Have you ever been called too sensitive by someone who was actually being cruel? What did you do? I want to know your story. As we ate pie, Linda continued her commentary. Margaret's pie is interesting. Not as good as the bakery one I bought as backup, but interesting. Margaret, you should really consider updating your wardrobe. I have a friend who works with older women on a budget. Margaret, Bob asked about your work. Tell him about that job you had. The one where you got passed over for promotion. Each comment was small, individually deniable. But cumulatively, they created a portrait of me as pathetic, failing, less than. Tommy and Susan said nothing. My parents seemed oblivious. Jessica and Michael were absorbed in their phones. Frank chuckled at Linda's jokes. Bob excused himself early, clearly wanting to escape the awkwardness. As he left, Linda said loudly enough for him to hear, "Well, that's another one scared off. Margaret, you really need to work on your social skills." I stood up. I need to use the bathroom. In Linda's powder room, I sat on the closed toilet lid and pulled out my phone. For the past 2 years, I'd been documenting Linda's behavior. Not because I planned to do anything with it, but because I'd started to doubt my own memory. Was I too sensitive? Was I imagining the cruelty? So I'd started keeping evidence. Screenshots of text messages where she'd insulted me then denied it. Recordings from family dinners where she'd said something vicious then claimed she'd never said it. A detailed log of incidents with dates and witnesses. I'd shown some of this to my therapist, Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, who'd confirmed what I suspected: Linda was engaging in systematic emotional abuse and gaslighting. The family was enabling it by always siding with her, always dismissing my reactions, always framing me as the problem. Dr. Rodriguez had asked me what I needed to heal. I'd said I needed them to see. To really see what Linda was doing. I pulled up the folder on my phone, labeled Linda, Documentation. 5 years of evidence. Hundreds of entries. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked back to the dining room. Everyone was having coffee now, the conversation light and pleasant. Linda was entertaining them with another story, this one about a vacation where I'd supposedly embarrassed her in front of hotel staff. She made such a scene over the room assignment. I was mortified. I walked to where I'd set my purse, pulled out a physical folder I'd printed that morning, and placed it in the center of the table. "What's that?" Linda asked, her tone suspicious. "Documentation," I said calmly. "Of 20 years of abuse." The room went completely silent. Linda's smile froze on her face. "Abuse? Are you serious right now? This is Christmas dinner. You just told another story about me that isn't true. I didn't make a scene about the hotel room. You booked us a room with 1 bed despite knowing I needed my own space because of my back problems. When I asked to change rooms, you told the staff I was being difficult. Then you spent the entire trip telling everyone I was high maintenance." I opened the folder. I have the email exchange where you deliberately booked 1 room. I have text messages where you joked about making me uncomfortable. I have recordings from that trip where you told other travelers I was your problematic sister. Linda's face went red. "You recorded me? That's insane. This proves you're crazy." "Actually, it proves I'm not. For years, you've said things and then denied them. You've told stories that paint me as ridiculous and then acted shocked when I object. You've systematically undermined my credibility, my confidence, and my relationship with this family. And every time I've tried to defend myself, you've called me too sensitive." I pulled out another document. Here's a text from 3 months ago where you told me my retirement party was on Saturday. I showed up to the restaurant, and no one was there. Because the party was actually on Friday. When I called you upset, you said I must have misread your text. But I have the screenshot. You deliberately gave me the wrong date so I'd miss my own party and look disorganized to my former colleagues. Tommy leaned forward. Is that true, Linda? Linda's voice rose. She's twisting everything. Taking things out of context. Yes, I made a mistake about the date, but it wasn't deliberate. She's paranoid. I pulled out my phone. Here's the text thread. You can see where you initially said Friday, then edited the message to say Saturday. iPhones show when messages are edited. You changed it after I'd read it, knowing I wouldn't see the update. I showed Tommy the screen. His face changed as he read. I continued, pulling out page after page. Here's documentation of every time you've insulted my appearance, my career, my divorce, my life choices. Every time you've set me up to fail or look bad. Every time you've lied about something I said or did. Every time you've manipulated situations to isolate me from the family. Here's a recording from Thanksgiving 2016 where you told everyone I'd criticized Mom's cooking. You can hear me on the recording actually complimenting it. But you told Mom I'd called it bland and amateur. Mom didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. I played the audio. My voice, clearly praising Mom's turkey. Linda's voice afterward, whispering to Mom that I'd been fake nice, but had really said it was terrible. Mom's expression crumbled as she listened. Here's an email where you told Jessica I didn't want to attend her wedding shower because I was jealous. Jessica, I never said that. I RSVP'd yes, immediately. Linda told me the wrong date, just like the retirement party. Jessica looked at her mother, shock on her face. You told me Aunt Margaret said she was too old for bridal showers and didn't want to come. I pulled out more evidence. Text messages. Emails. Recordings. A pattern spanning 20 years of small cruelties, strategic lies, and systematic gaslighting. All of it designed to make me look unstable, sensitive, difficult while Linda appeared generous, patient, and kind. Frank was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. Linda, what is this? It's her being crazy. Linda shouted. She's obsessed with me. Who keeps recordings of their sister? Who documents family conversations? This is proof she's mentally ill. No, I said calmly. This is proof I'm not. For 20 years, you've made me doubt my own memory. You've convinced this family that I'm the problem. That I'm too sensitive, too dramatic, too difficult. But I'm not. I'm someone who's been systematically abused and gaslit by her sister, and I started documenting it because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. I looked around the table at my family. Every single time I've tried to tell you what Linda was doing, you dismissed me. You said I was overreacting. You said I was too sensitive. You took her side automatically because she's charismatic and fun and I'm quiet and serious. But charm isn't the same as kindness. And just because abuse is subtle doesn't mean it isn't real. Mom spoke up, her voice shaking. Margaret, I had no idea. I thought you two just had normal sibling rivalry. It's not rivalry when it's one-sided. It's not rivalry when one person is trying to destroy the other person's credibility and relationships. That's abuse. I closed the folder. I came here tonight prepared to endure another round of insults disguised as jokes. Another evening of being told I'm too sensitive when I object to cruelty. But when Linda said it this time, something changed. I realized I don't have to accept this anymore. I don't have to let you tell me my reality isn't real. I looked directly at Linda. You are cruel. You have been cruel to me for most of our lives. And the fact that you do it with a smile doesn't make it less devastating. It makes it more so. Because everyone believes you over me. Everyone thinks I'm the problem. But I'm not. You are. Linda was crying now, mascara running. I never meant to hurt you. You're my sister. I love you. No, you don't. People who love each other don't systematically undermine each other. They don't lie about each other. They don't set each other up to fail. I don't know why you've targeted me. I don't know if it's jealousy or competition or just something broken in you. But I know I can't fix it. And I can't keep being damaged by it. I picked up my purse and the folder. I'm leaving now. I don't know if I'll be back. That depends on whether this family is capable of acknowledging what's happened and holding Linda accountable. But I'm done being the scapegoat. I'm done being called too sensitive. I'm done pretending this is normal. Tommy stood up. Margaret, wait. Please. Let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. It's all in the folder. Read it. Listen to the recordings. Look at the screenshots. Decide for yourselves whether I'm too sensitive or whether Linda has been abusing me for decades. Then decide whether you want to be a family that tolerates that or not. I walked out of Linda's house into the cold December night. Behind me, I could hear shouting. Linda's voice, shrill and defensive. Frank's voice, angry and confused. My mother crying. I got in my car and drove home to my condo in Stamford, the folder on my passenger seat like a talisman. For the first time in 20 years, I didn't feel crazy. I felt clear. The next few days were chaos. My phone exploded with calls and messages. Tommy called first. I read everything. All of it. Margaret, I'm so sorry. I had no idea how bad it was. I thought you were just. I don't know, difficult. But this is systematic. This is abuse. Susan called separately. I feel terrible. I've witnessed some of these incidents. I should have said something. I let Linda's charm blind me to what she was actually doing. Jessica sent a long email apologizing for believing her mother's lies. I'm horrified that I didn't question the stories she told about you. I'm 34 years old. I should have been more critical. I'm so sorry I contributed to your isolation. Michael called drunk and crying. Aunt Margaret, my mom is a monster. I've been reading the documentation. Some of this stuff, I remember now. I remember seeing it happen and thinking it was weird but not saying anything. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mom and Dad came to my condo in person. Mom could barely speak through her tears. How did we not see? How did we let this happen to you? Because Linda made it invisible, I said. She was careful. Nothing she did was big enough to be undeniable on its own. It was the accumulation over time that was devastating. And she was always charming after. Always had an explanation. Always made me seem unreasonable for being hurt. Dad, always a man of few words, said simply, "We failed you. As parents, we failed to protect you." The only person who didn't reach out was Linda. For 3 weeks, silence. Then, on January 15th, a letter arrived. Handwritten, 10 pages long. She confessed everything. Not because she was genuinely sorry, I realized as I read, but because she'd been caught and was trying to salvage her reputation. The letter was full of excuses. She was jealous of my career success. She resented that I was the firstborn. She felt inadequate compared to my accomplishments. She'd started putting me down to feel better about herself, and it had become a habit she couldn't break. "I know I hurt you," she wrote. "I know I was cruel. But I never meant it the way you took it. I thought we were just joking around, the way sisters do. I didn't realize how much damage I was causing." That last part was a lie. You don't systematically edit text messages and create false narratives by accident. You don't do that without knowing exactly what you're doing. I didn't respond to the letter. Instead, I sent a formal cease and desist through my attorney. No contact unless absolutely necessary for family emergencies involving our parents. Linda violated it 3 times in the first month, sending messages through other family members. Each time, my attorney sent warning letters. She finally stopped. The family fractured along predictable lines. Tommy and Susan fully supported me, cutting back their contact with Linda significantly. Jessica and Michael both distanced themselves from their mother, with Jessica eventually going to therapy to process her own experiences with Linda's manipulation. Mom and Dad tried to maintain relationships with both of us but couldn't hide their disappointment in Linda. Frank divorced her 8 months later. In the divorce proceedings, he cited the documentation I'd compiled as evidence of Linda's character issues, particularly her willingness to deceive and manipulate. He got primary custody of their adult children's loyalty, if not their actual custody since they were grown. Linda lost most of her social circle once word spread about what had happened. Her friends slowly learned about the documentation, about the systematic cruelty, about the gaslighting. The charm that had protected her for so long stopped working once people knew what to look for. I heard through Tommy that she'd moved to Florida, starting over somewhere no one knew her history. Part of me felt bad for her. But a larger part felt relief that she was gone. 2 years after that Christmas dinner, I hosted my own holiday gathering. Tommy and Susan, Jessica and Michael, Mom and Dad, and a few close friends. We ate my apple pie and store-bought cookies because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Jessica asked me about the folder, which had become legendary in family lore. "Do you regret it? Exposing everything like that?" I thought about it. No. I regret not doing it sooner. I spent 20 years doubting myself because Linda was convincing and I was tired. Those recordings and screenshots saved my sanity. They proved I wasn't too sensitive. I was being abused. Michael added, "It changed how I see relationships now. I watch for those patterns. The subtle put-downs. The gaslighting. The charm offensive that makes you doubt what you experienced. I won't let anyone do that to me or people I love." That was the real gift of that horrible Christmas dinner. Not just freedom for me, but awareness for my family. They couldn't unsee what Linda had done. They couldn't unknow the patterns of manipulation. They'd been educated about emotional abuse in the most personal way possible. Mom, now 90, said quietly, I wish you'd had that folder when you were 8 and stopped dancing. Maybe I would have seen then what was happening. Maybe, I agreed. But I see it now. That's what matters. Last month, Linda reached out through a mutual acquaintance. She wanted to reconcile, to rebuild our relationship, to put the past behind us. I declined through the same intermediary. Tell her I'm not interested in reconciliation. I'm interested in protection. And the best protection is distance. Some people think that's cold. That family should forgive. That sisters should overcome their differences. But those people haven't read the folder. They haven't heard the recordings. They haven't experienced 20 years of systematic gaslighting. They don't understand that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I can forgive Linda for being broken in ways that made her cruel. I can have compassion for whatever pain drove her to hurt me. But I don't have to give her access to hurt me again. Being too sensitive was never the problem. Being too trusting was. Trusting that family meant safety. Trusting that cruelty disguised as jokes was actually affection. Trusting that people who smiled while they hurt you couldn't really be that bad. I'm 72 now. That Christmas dinner was 4 years ago, but it feels like a lifetime. I'm a different person than I was that night. Stronger, clearer, less willing to accept mistreatment for the sake of peace. The folder sits in my filing cabinet, a physical reminder that my reality is real. That documentation matters. That evidence can set you free from gaslighting. That sometimes the only way to be believed is to prove it beyond any doubt. Before we end, I need 3 things from you. First, hit that like button if this story resonated with you in any way. Second, share this with someone who's been called too sensitive, someone who's doubted their own reality because of manipulation. Third, comment below and tell me, have you ever documented abuse to protect your sanity? Have you ever been gaslit by family? How did you handle it? I read every single comment because your stories matter. Your truth matters. Remember, you're not too sensitive. You're responding appropriately to inappropriate treatment. If someone's cruelty requires you to have no feelings in order to tolerate it, the problem isn't your sensitivity. It's their cruelty. Document what's happening to you if you need to. Trust your reality. Protect your peace. And know that walking away from abuse, even family abuse, isn't wrong. It's survival. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 72 years old, and that Christmas dinner taught me that the most powerful response to "you're too sensitive" is evidence. Not explanations, not apologies, not trying harder to be believed. Just facts. Cold, documented, undeniable facts. Don't let anyone convince you that your reality isn't real. And if you need proof to believe yourself, gather it. Your sanity is worth protecting.